Hello everyone. I'm Manoj Mittal. I'm a field technical director with Cohesity for emerging regions, and I'm joined in by Lincoln. What we are going to talk about is Cohesity Identity Resilience, powered by Semperis, right? So Identity Resilience is all about securing your Active Directory and your different identity platforms, right? A good strategy means that you have to detect, right, secure, and then respond to any kind of attacks that might be compromising your identity resilience. So we're gonna go deep dive into it. So I'll go to the next slide and I'll invite Lincoln to introduce himself and basically start the session.
Thank you, Manoj. Yes, look, wonderful to be speaking with everyone today. My name is Lincoln. I am from Semperis. I'm the APJ Director of Channel Sales and Alliances. I've been in cyber for some years now and been with Semperis for coming up on 2 years. And it's certainly been a very interesting time since I joined. We've seen a massive acceleration in the number of threats that are actually taking place with regards to the identity system, in particularly Active Directory. And as you can see there on the slide, 50% of organizations have experienced an Active Directory attack in the last 2 years, and 40% of those attacks are successful. Now, that is a massive increase on what we've seen in the past, and I'll go on to talk a little bit about why that is in the coming slides. 90% of incidents or response, sorry, that Mandiant take care of. So Mandiant, they're the incident response company from Google. 90% of their incidents involved Active Directory compromise in some way. And we ran a ransomware report last year. Every year, Semperis run a ransomware report. And we also found that for the customers that were interviewed in that report, which was over 1,000 customers, 83% of the APJ customers that were interviewed experienced identity infrastructure compromise last year alone. So that is a massive number. What we also found globally was not only was there such a high percentage of organizations having their identity infrastructure compromised, but a significant number, 73% to be exact, were attacked multiple times, and 31% of that group paid ransom 3 or more times in 12 months. So it is becoming a real problem, and I'll talk a little bit more about why that is. So 9 out of 10 attacks involve Active Directory. Why is that? Why are we seeing this increase in Active Directory attacks? Well, if you have a look at Active Directory as a product, it's a 25-year-old product. Microsoft bought that out 25 years ago. I joke by now saying if it was in America, they'd be able to drive and drink beer and vote and do all of that stuff. It's an adult. Now, how many other products are organizations using that are 25 years old? Not many, if any at all. So Active Directory is a legacy system that companies have been using. It's been installed, it works. And over that time, as much as Microsoft have done to strengthen and harden Active Directory, it was built in a time when the cyber threats were very different to what we're seeing now. And we're seeing cyber threats only accelerate, and the the threat actor organizations becoming far more sophisticated in their attacks. And we've seen that security perimeter move to the identity system. What once was at the endpoint, but at that time, since then, we've seen companies come out, and there's billions of dollars a year spent on endpoint detection and response. Threat actors now know that's a difficult spot. The next weakest link is Active Directory and the identity system. So this is why we're seeing this increase, and why it's very important for organizations now to really have a good look at their identity infrastructure. 33% of organizations have no Active Directory defense in place. Many customers that we speak to, they back up Active Directory with, general all-purpose backup. It could be Commvault, it could be Rubrik, or any of the like. And that's their line of defense when it comes to Active Directory. However, what we've seen in the past few years is that is no longer enough. And Manoj has a great slide that shows just how much is required when recovering Active Directory that he'll explain later. The average time it takes to gain access to Active Directory by a threat actor is only 16 hours. That's very fast. And in our report, we discovered the average amount of time a threat actor is in your environment is over 200 days. So when a threat actor gets into your environment via Active Directory within 16 hours, a very fast time, they spend a lot of time laying quiet, laying dormant, moving laterally through the identity system, finding other profiles that have higher security clearance to allow them to then explore different areas, different applications, and figure out what they need to do to be able to bring your Active Directory system down and encrypt it. Thank you, Manoj. So, what challenges do we see when it comes to these threat actors taking hold of Active Directory, and what is causing these challenges for customers now and that we're seeing? First and foremost is infected or corrupted backups. As I mentioned before, in our ransomware report, of the customers we spoke to, 73% had been attacked multiple times, of which 31% had been attacked 3 or 4 times. How can that be so? 3 or 4 times. That's every 3 months they're being ransomware attacked. One of the reasons is because many Active Directory backups contain the malware that caused the problem initially. So with that threat actor being in your organization for over 200 days, lying dormant, is doing that because they plant the malware and they want you to back it up. They want you to back it up multiple times so that when they bring down your infrastructure and you recover from one of those backup images, it contains the malware, which leaves a backdoor wide open for that threat actor to come straight back in. And this is where the backdoors and persistence can linger longer in the environment post recovery. And again, that's where that reinfection comes in. Complicated Active Directory process to recover Active Directory, and I won't steal Manoj's thunder because he's got a great slide on this. It is very, very complicated. And because of its complication and its time-consuming nature and its requirement of significant amount of IT staff to be involved, a lot of customers don't run continuous disaster recovery drills. They're cumbersome. They are very much a heavy lift and can become burdensome on the environment and take those particular staff away from other projects that are helping drive that business forward. So the complicated nature of Active Directory recovery sometimes means it gets a little bit of a backseat in terms of attention and lengthy downtime and disruption. The process of recovery is lengthy and it is significantly error prone. Thank you, Manoj. Now, so what we now see that is Active Directory isn't secure, nothing is. As we mentioned, 90% of Mandiant's responses involve Active Directory, and we see 90% of global enterprises using Active Directory or even hybrid. So not only on premises, but also in the cloud with Entra ID. 90% of organizations are using it. So that means from a threat actor perspective, there's a lot of opportunity out there for me. So I'm going to focus in that particular area. And it's the primary attack target. That security perimeter has moved. And without Active Directory, business operations come to a halt. And we've seen this time and time again. One of the most significant examples of this, besides what we saw with regards to Jaguar Land Rover, now that wasn't to do with Active Directory, but that was still to do with credential theft, shut down 7 of their smart factories and caused a bailout from the UK government. We saw Asahi in Japan, beer, I love it, and they couldn't supply. They couldn't supply restaurants, bars, convenience stores because, again, their factories were taken down. But more significantly than that was an example with Maersk, which is the globe's largest shipping and logistics provider. They were attacked in the NotPetya attack, and it took down all of their domain controllers worldwide. This meant that they lost everything. Couldn't access computer programs, applications, couldn't access manifests, logs. Ships couldn't come into port, ships couldn't leave port, perishable goods were stuck in boats sitting out at port because they couldn't come in because Maersk had no way to understand which boat was coming in and what was on it, etc. It was a massive, massive pain and caused them into the hundreds of $millions worth of damage. The saving grace for them was there was one domain controller in Africa that was offline. So it was not infected. The reason it was offline is there was a power outage. They then had to ship that domain controller around to every single headquarter globally to bring their Active Directory up. So it is seen and it is proven that if you lose Active Directory, business stops. And the question to ask is, if my Active Directory goes down and my business stops, how long can I manage to sustain my business? Thank you, Manoj. So, or what happens when the Active Directory is attacked? So, all DCs will have malware on them, and some DCs will become non-functional. Like I should have said with Maersk, all of their domain controllers were taken out bar one because it was offline due to a power outage, thankfully for Maersk. But this is what happens, and it shuts everything down to the point where you can't even enter your office because many swipe card and security passes are linked to your Active Directory profile. But the not so obvious effects are the changes in services provided to control. So privileged group memberships changed, permissions changed, group policy objects change. There is a significant amount that happens behind the scenes as well that causes significant disruption when Active Directory is attacked. So it is a very real problem. And it is a very real issue that we're encouraging customers really to try and understand more about their existing Active Directory and identity infrastructure in order to be able to mitigate these risks going forward. And this is where Semperis and Cohesity come together to provide the industry's most comprehensive identity recovery solution and attack path management solution. With that, I'll hand across to Manoj for the next few slides. Thank you, Manoj.
Thanks, Lincoln. So I'll speak a little bit more on this slide, right? So what happens when an AD is attacked, right? It's like they persist malware, right? Either on one of the systems in your network or on the AD. They basically go and encrypt files on the AD. Now, what's very important to note is basically that like the malware basically needs an operating system, right? Or things like sysvol to basically persist on it. Okay. Now, if you have a recovery process in place, typically that involves basically building the whole operating system along with the Active Directory components as part of the recovery process, right? But if the backup itself has that malware, then when you are recovering that AD back, right? So that means that you are actually reintroducing the malware back into the system, right? And also when the bad actors go and change the group membership, right, and all those things, which basically hamper you in a lot of ways, right? So you need a way to basically visualize that what changes are being done, right, and a quick way to basically go and recover back the changes, right, which are not expected. Okay. So what that means is like Active Directory becomes a very, very critical and challenging workload, right? To recover, right? Now, if you see the AD recovery process, which Microsoft itself recommends, it's like a very difficult and time-consuming process. I'm going to show you the list of all the steps that you would probably need to follow, right? And then the backups that you're taking of AD, they are easily corrupted or inaccessible, right? And then AD cyber recovery drills, they are complex because of the whole time-consuming process. So we have a customer we are talking to right now, and they said that they like to recover the AD in their clean room, they require basically almost a week to do that as part of the recovery drill, which is basically a planned activity. Just think about it. If something happens and you have to do it during a non-planned activity, during a wartime, how much time it's going to take, right? So manual Active Directory orchestration or recovery steps is basically a long list of 29 steps that basically is recommended by Microsoft. What the important considerations of this are, this is like error prone, and you require, I mean, like a lot of stuff to basically execute all of these steps, right? Now, if you see the most general purpose backups that Lincoln talked about, who are prevalent in the market today, offering you Active Directory recovery orchestration. They back up and they basically automate only step three, right? But all of the other steps, you are basically left for yourself to basically go and perform. Again, it can be error prone, right? And it could basically take multiple iterations to basically come to a state where you can actually go and be back in business, right? So what that means is recovering from identity related attacks require a different approach with identity specific technology, process, and people, right? Now, Cohesity and Semperis have been in this domain for more than 10, 15 years, right? Semperis has been doing ADFR for a very, very long time, and Cohesity is known for its cyber resilient backup platform for more than 10 years, right? So that's where Cohesity and Semperis have introduced a cyber first Active Directory backup and recovery, not just backup and recovery, but with post-breach forensics combined with industry-leading AI-powered multi-cloud data storage and management, right? We also offer first of its kind attack path management, right, to close risky access to sensitive data storage assets. This is something that is the USP of this solution, right? I mean, you will end up recovering AD if you are hit by it, but what you also need to know is like, what is your most vulnerable path? How do you close down that vulnerable path, right? Now, if you see how like the manual process that I just showed you compares to the Cohesity Identity Resilience or our ADFR, like from days and weeks, right? And in a matter of just 5 to 7 clicks, you will be able to recover AD and with just one or two AD admins. That's it, nothing more than that. Right. Now let's get into the architecture, right? The high level how the architecture works of this solution. So you have your AD domain controllers, right? And we will deploy a ADFR management server. That ADFR management server will basically talk to the AD servers, take the backup, right? And when I say backup, it's like just the AD specific components, and then basically write to the Cohesity data platform, right? Once it sits on the Cohesity data platform, right, you can use it for a number of purposes. You can basically vault it for long-term retention. You can basically replicate it to an alternate site, right? You can do dev test, you can do analytics, right? You can do a number of things that Cohesity data platform provides. Now, if you go into a little bit of a deeper deep dive into how the whole integration works, right? So you have ADFR agents that sits on the domain controllers, and the ADFR management server basically goes and takes the ADFR backups, and then it basically writes all the config metadata and DC backups to Cohesity smart files. Uh, uh, Cohesity data, and then you can also basically replicate and then send it to an offsite location. But what's more important is that if you have isolated recovery environment in place, right, and you do drills, right, around the year or once a year, right, so you can just simply connect Cohesity into that isolated recovery environment, right, stand up a ADFR management server, which is very, very quick to do. And then in the isolated recovery environment, and this isolated recovery environment can be anywhere, right? It can be on-prem, it can be in the cloud, right? You just need to basically stand up your domain controller servers, install ADFR agent on it, and then we'll automatically read the backup that has been done and then just basically start restores. So you'll not have any challenges with respect to operating system incompatibility, right? All the things that come with when you do a whole domain controller backup and rely on system state to do backups. Right. So what are the use cases that this solution has? The top use cases from a response of the attack is that you can do Active Directory backup management. You can do post-attack Active Directory recovery. You can do backup monitoring and reporting. And you can also do Active Directory disaster recovery drill planning and execution, right? All in a matter of like minutes and hours and not days, weeks, and months. The capabilities that the unique capabilities that this solution provides is automated lightweight Active Directory forest backup and recovery. If you have multiple forests, right, there's no challenge at all. You can in fact go and recover multiple forests in parallel, right? When we go and basically recover the AD, I mean, you remember, right? We are not recovering the whole operating system. We are only recovering the Active Directory specific files and Active Directory specific components. So you can be assured that what you're recovering is clean Active Directory. Now, in case, let's say, for example, sysvol also has some malware persistent on it, you have the capability to say to us that, okay, don't restore sysvol, right? So that way we'll only recover the AD components without sysvol. So you don't have any zero maintenance required for backup configuration because all of this is automated, right? You have to just deploy it, configure your policies, and that's it. That's done, right? You have a flexibility in provisioning, whether it is you want to go with a complete software defined model or you want to basically like have a hardware kind of a strategy where you want to keep it isolated, right, and not on a system which can be compromised itself, right? And overall, what it does is like it provides you rapid Active Directory forest recovery. The benefits that this solution brings to you is automated clean data backup, right? So automated malware-free, right? And then you can do auditing. You have a single pane of glass and a very, very fast 5-click recovery. And then basically you can do post-breach forensics and you can basically, like I said, right, you can recover to anywhere that you want to. Now, what we're gonna now talk about, we discussed like, right, how you basically gonna recover in case your Active Directory is attacked. But it is also very, very important to understand what are the options or what are the solutions that we have in place to, first of all, prevent from that kind of attack happening, right? So Lincoln is now again going to talk about a few solutions that we have to offer to basically prevent an Active Directory attack in the first place.
Thank you, Manoj. So, yeah, as we've sort of discussed, the breaches are happening. They're very real. At Semperis, we often encourage our customers to take an already breached mindset, and not from a perspective of putting fear into the customer, but ensuring that they fully understand their environment and are making sure that they're aware of any potential backdoors and what they need to consider in order to harden their identity infrastructure further to prevent these attacks in future. 74% of data breaches start with privileged credential abuse. And this is generally what we see. Many of the high profile breaches that we see have started simply from that credential abuse or credential theft. MGM, the casino and movie company, was taken down by a group called Scattered Spider. And that all came about because of credential theft. And they were able to shut down their entire casinos, hotel management systems, everything. There is now a class action against MGM because many people lost a lot of money. And that was just simply from credential abuse. Another example that we saw of this was in the UK. BBC employees were sent an email from a threat actors group that said, give us your credentials. And if we're successful in breaking into BBC and shutting down their organization, if we've used your credentials, we'll give you 10% of the ransom purse. So this is where it all tends to happen. I was just in an airport not long ago and a person next to me sat next to me, opened up their laptop. On the back of their laptop on the screen was the name of their company. So I was able to see who they work for, very large, very high profile IT organization. They then went on and entered their username and password right next to me, right in front of me. Now, if I had been a threat actor, that would have been a great payday for me. So credential abuse is often where it starts. 88% of customers impacted by cyber incidents have insecure Active Directory configuration. So again, understanding how your Active Directory is configured is key as well. So knowing your current security posture around your identity infrastructure is critical. And 1 hour and 42 minutes. So we saw before that it takes 16 hours to get in. It takes them only 1 hour and 42 minutes to begin to move laterally after device compromise. So very, very fast. What is it now that customers can do in order to harden their infrastructure, their identity infrastructure environments? Thank you, Manoj. What do they need to look at? So some of the challenges, countless attack paths to data. What we are seeing is we are seeing the attack surface ever increasing. We've seen excessive privileges in legacy Active Directory environments that have remained, people that are no longer there, contractors whose contracts have expired, but they're still there in Active Directory with excessive privileges, create thousands or millions of potential attack paths. There's undefined tier zero perimeter, and this leaves organizations, oblivious. They're not aware of any potential security gaps. There's significant difficulty in identifying high-risk paths. Attack paths to vulnerable business critical data are often left undiscovered. They're not easy to find. So giving customers a way to understand these attack paths is something that we do and we do very well and is critical for customers to understand. And it's also important to note that the most common attack paths are often not the most dangerous. It's the ones we don't really know about, the ones we haven't identified that could potentially lead to the greatest damage to the organization. And of course, limited resources and approaches. Security teams, we're limited by the number of people. We're limited by, the amount of time it takes us to focus on what matters. Investigating attack paths, etc. It's time consuming, and that's often a constraint on many organizations. So how can we help you? Thank you, Manoj. There are 2 tools that you can access today, free of charge. These are community tools that are provided by Semperis and Cohesity that allow customers to get a very, very deep understanding of their infrastructure, their identity infrastructure. The first one is a product called Forest Druid. Now, some of you out there may be familiar with a product called Bloodhound. Bloodhound 2 is an attack path analysis tool. However, that very much comes from an attacker's perspective. Forest Druid works a little bit differently, and it allows the user to identify their tier zero assets, their true tier zero assets and that perimeter, and then will allow them to understand what are the attack paths that are potentially going to impact that tier zero perimeter. So much more of a defender's view in terms of attack path analysis. It allows you to then understand the severity of those attack paths and prioritize accordingly to really monitor what matters the most and save time and resources on that. So this is a free tool. You can download it as many times as you like. You can use it as many times as you like, and gives you that visibility that you need to make sure your environment is safe. The second tool we have is a tool called Purple Knight. Purple Knight last year received 45,000 downloads. Again, this is a free tool open to everyone, open to customers, partners, it doesn't matter. And is very simple, very easy to use, but gives you an incredible depth and insight into the security posture of your Active Directory environment. What it will do is it will give you a point in time snapshot of that security posture, and it will allow you to audit your Active Directory for security. We will measure and we will scan your Active Directory environment and compare that against over 120 security indicators that we have built into the product. I actually think that number may have increased recently because we're continually adding more. Now, these security indicators are a mix of industry standard security indicators, but also from our experience and the expertise that we have working in Semperis. We have more than 150 plus years of combined Microsoft MVP experience at Semperis, and they bring along tremendous wealth of knowledge, and they also put these into Purple Knight. Purple Knight will give you that point in time snapshot, but more importantly, it gives you a report that lists from most critical to least critical any potential indicators of compromise or indicators of exposure that we've found, and it will explain those to you and how to remediate. So very, very key products. So how do they work together to do that? Well, like I said, it will scan that environment to give the Forest Druid will scan your environment and give you that visual map of accounts with privileged access leading to Cohesity storage clusters. So you can understand who in the privileged account leads to those security clusters, that tier zero assets. It will allow us to then define the security zones for those designated privilege accounts and remove excessive privileges from accounts as well. One of the biggest problems we see is that there are a significant number of accounts out there that have excessive privileges that are no longer used, that are no longer accessible. The final bit then is that monitoring. So once you've defined and used Forest Druid to understand your environment, to map those attack paths, we then give you that monitoring with Purple Knight, which is that periodic Active Directory environment scanning to uncover any potential IOEs or IOCs. So what we can do within that is it gives you that very clear visual map of risky paths. And that's really important because that visual representation explains so much more, especially when you're in a situation where you may have to go to management or boards to say, here are some problems we need to fix. We need resources allocated to do so. Having that visual map not only makes it very simple to understand, but is also an incredibly powerful tool. It was also very easy to install and deploy. Purple Knight is very simple, can be ran from any domain connected PC, and we'll do it all there for you. We'll download a folder to your PC, it will scan your environment, and then it will download the report back to that same folder. Very important to note too, that with both of these products, Semperis do not keep any data, we do not see any data. It is entirely between you and those products. Sorry, Raj.
So one thing that I would like to hear for everyone out here, right? Like the backup product that you are going to use to secure Active Directory, right? Typically, people end up basically deploying it in like a non-administrative zone, like separate from the other backup products, right? Like or create a separate domain for Active Directory backups, right? Now, obviously that complicates things to you, but that's what you need to do to make sure that if your regular backup product management domain is compromised, at least your backup product, which is basically managing your security Active Directory, is not compromised, right? And the reason is that you don't have that visibility into the attack path, right? But with this integration, you have this complete visibility. So the same cohesive system that you are backing up to backup, right, any of your systems can also back up your AD, right? And then we can provide you a complete attack path, right? A visualized map into Cohesity, like Lincoln said, so that you can basically close down the risky paths. So that's how simple the value prop of the solution is. Go ahead, Lincoln.
Thank you, Manoj. And what these products will help you to achieve is not only an environment that you can recover, okay? Recovery is no longer enough. Being able to recover an environment that is trustworthy is now what is critical. So the combination of Cohesity and Semperis in what we showed you in terms of the backup and recovery and the secure immutable storage of those backup and recovery files, along with the ability to then understand your environment through attack path analysis and Active Directory security posture, will give you the utmost confidence to be able to recover an environment that is trustworthy. As I mentioned before, 31% of those customers that have been attacked multiple times were attacked 3 or 4 times within that year. Their environment was recoverable, but it was not trustworthy. So a trustworthy environment is now what is critical. And this is what has shifted. And 12 months ago when I started, it was all about recovery. Now it's about trustworthy recovery. So the benefits that you'll see is you'll see a reduced time in uncovering these risky paths to Cohesity storage cluster, because that's where the backups are. That's what we don't want to have infected. And it's critical to understand any potential attack paths to those clusters. Fast remediation of risky assets. So visual maps of groups and accounts with access to higher value targets. You can understand them clearly and you can monitor and implement whatever you need to do to ensure that those groups are correct and remove any excessive privileges. It will allow you to, prioritize remediation efforts too and lock down excessive privileges. That is the biggest thing. So many customers have many contractors coming and going that have access, auditors that come in and they're given access to the finance system for 6 months. When they leave, they still seem to remain open. That means your attack surface is still increased. This will give you the ability to ensure that your attack surface is minimized and you have an understanding of what that is. And of course, improved data security, simplified attack path analysis. Now, what has been really exciting with the relationship with Cohesity and Semperis is not only the ability that we've gone and created the most comprehensive Active Directory backup recovery and analysis tools. But as of the beginning of this week, that relationship has expanded. We've added another product of Semperis to that relationship, and that is a product called Directory Services Protector. Now, this is literally launched on Tuesday of this week, so it is brand new. I'll only talk a little bit about it because this may very well need another webinar to explain more. But essentially what Directory Services Protector is, Manoj mentioned at the beginning, you must protect, detect, and respond. Directory services is the prevent and detect piece. This is a continuous vulnerability assessment. We are scanning your Active Directory in real time and measuring it against over 160 security indicators to ensure its stability and ensure its safety. It also includes tamper-proof tracking. So not only are we measuring your Active Directory against a significant number of security indicators, more than any other product in the market, but we are also tracking every single activity that happens within Active Directory so that if we see something that could be anomalous, could be potentially nefarious, we can then understand which user that was to then isolate that user and manage that particular potential threat. And that is tamper-proof. You cannot change that. That log is there. It is locked in. We also have real-time security alerts built in. So again, we can build in various alerts that mean if something occurs in Active Directory, if there's an action, if there's a privilege change, you are notified. So that way you can stay on top of any potentially unauthorized changes in your identity infrastructure. Auto remediation. This is fantastic. This is such a powerful tool. Malicious change rollback. Now, what we've also seen in Active Directory, many times changes that occur in Active Directory may not be malicious. It may just be human error. It could be a patch upgrade that has affected some other part of your infrastructure. Who knows? But what this does is not only does it stop any of those potential, accidental changes causing problems, but we can also, within Directory Services Protector, put a number of, rules that state, should this action occur, automatically reverse it back to the previous safe state. So as an example, if you have a rule in there around privilege change, and a threat actor gets in and assumes an identity, and then they go into the system and try to upgrade their security level to global admin, automatically they'll roll back to the previous safe state. You'll then get an alert. You'll be able to isolate that user and understand what that is. So no matter how many times a threat actor may try, that will automatically roll back to the previous safe state. And this is something that we do. And, I'm not sure of many other products that do it, but again, it gives you that peace of mind that you have the best, similar to device driver rollback, very similar. But it gives you that peace of mind that what you have in there is giving you every chance to mitigate that risk before it becomes a major problem. And of course, within all this, there has built-in compliance reporting. So that way you are able to use that compliance reporting, report back to boards of directors, insurance companies, whatever it may be, to validate what it is you're doing and have done and what's occurred, etc. So a very, very powerful tool, and it really only goes to expand further the already industry-leading solutions that Cohesity and Semperis has. So we're very excited to have launched this week. Stay tuned. There is a lot more to come about this in the near future. Thank you, Manoj. So
So,
after you, go. Sorry, Manoj. Leave it
good.
to you
So
guys.
I mean, I would just like to summarize, right? So what you heard today was, right, not just a point solution, which is doing just like a recovery of Active Directory, right? You heard a suite of solutions that basically help prevent, right, detect and respond to any kind of attacks that can happen on your Active Directory. Now, some of the important things that you heard today and should be takeaway for you is, right, a very, very important solution proposition is that you are not backing up the complete system, because when you back up the complete system, you are actually, when you're recovering, you are recovering, and those backups can have malware in them. You are only recovering the AD components, right? You are able to do quarantine of sysvol, right? There's no SaaS dependency at all on this platform that, okay, you need to be connected to SaaS to recover your data, right? It's like completely an isolated solution. Management domain is completely controlled by you, right? Where you want to do, right? And then you have these n number of tools which helps you prevent, right, an attack to your AD in the first place itself. So you heard how we can prevent attacks to your AD, and you saw, right, how quickly we can recover your AD to anywhere that you want to. Okay, so the next steps, we can get started. We can basically improve your Active Directories, RTOs, and RPOs. Get in touch with us, right? You can protect your enterprise Active Directory data at scale. Like I said, multiple forests, multiple domains, no issues at all. Recovery, all of them in parallel, no issues at all. Recovering anywhere that you want to, in the cloud, on-prem, at edge, wherever you want to, no issues at all, right? So all in all, improve your incident response and disaster planning, peace of mind. That's what you want. The next steps, I mean, like I said, get in touch with us. We can basically run business and technical validations, build a proof of value with you, right? And then basically do some economic impact calculator if need be. Thank you. Lincoln, would you like to add something else before we move over to Q&A?
No, again, just love to thank everyone for attending. And look, there's been a lot we've discussed here. There is a lot more we can discuss. We're very keen to speak with you, to help you understand further, provide you with those free tools and how to use them, just to better understand your own environment. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Let us know. We're very, we do what we do because we want to ensure that customers are secure and their environments are secure, because the flow-on effect of a breach doesn't just impact the organization itself. It impacts individuals, workers, customers, and our motto at Semperis is be a force for good, which is why we have these free tools like Purple Knight and Forest Druid to provide to you for free, because we want to be that force for good and help customers to defend themselves, defend their workers, and defend their customers' information. So thank you very much. And yeah, really appreciate the time for everyone today.